Matthew chapter 27, Judas hangs himself. Verse 1. Early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elder of the people come to the decision to put Jesus to death. Verse 2. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. Verse 3. When Judas, who has betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 silver coins to the chief priests and the elder. Verse 4. I have sinned, he said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. What is that to art? He replied, that's your responsibility. Verse 5. So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. Verse 6. The chief priests picked up the coin and said, it is against the law to put this into the treasure, since it is blood money. Verse 7. So they decided to use the money to buy the pottery field as a burial place for foreigner. Burial place for foreigner. Verse 8. That is why has been called the field of blood to this day. Verse 9. Then what has spoken by Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. They took the 30 silver coins, the price on him by the people of Israel. Verse 10. And they used them to buy the pottery field as the Lord commanded me. Jesus before Pilate. Verse 11. Meanwhile, when Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, are you the king of the Jews? Just is as you say. Jesus replied, verse 4, when he was accosted by the chief priests and the elder, he gave no answer. Verse 30. Then Pilate asked him, do not you hear the testimony they are bringing against you? Verse 14. But Jesus made no reply, no, not even to a single chair, to the great amazement of the governor. Verse 15. Now is what the governor cast on to the field to release a prisoner, choice by the crowd. Verse 16. At the time they has an notorious prisoner called Barnabas. Verse 17. So when the crowd had greater periods, asked him, which one do you want me to release to you, Barnabas or Jesus, who is called Christ? Verse 18. For he knew it was out of envy that they have handed Jesus over to him. Verse 19. When Pilate was sitting on the just it. His way sent him his messenger. Do not have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him. Verse 20. But the chief priests and the elder persuaded the crowd to ask for Barnabas and to have Jesus executed. Verses 21. Which of the two do you want me to release to you? Asking the governor. Barnabas, they answer. Verses 22. What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called Christ? Pilate asking. They answer, crucify him. Verse 23. Why? What crime has he committed? Asking Pilate. But they shouted at the louder, crucify him. Verse 24. When the Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took the water and washed his hands in front of the crowd, and I am innocent of this man's blood, he said. It is your responsibility. Verse 25. All the people answered, let his blood be on us and on our children. Verse 26. Then he released Barnabas to them, but he have Jesus forgotten and handed over to be crucified. The student mocked Jesus. Verse 27. Then the governor student took Jesus into the fortress and gathering the world company of the students around him. Verses 28. They strapped him and put a secret robe on him. Verse 29. And then threaded together the clouds of the thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand and kneeled in front of him and mocking him. Hail, kings of the Jews, they say. Verse 30. They spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the heads again and again. Verses 31. After they have mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. The Crucifixion. Verses 32. As they was going out, they meet a man from Cyrenus named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. Verse 33. They come to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Verse 34. There they offer Jesus wine to drink, mixed with grape. But after tasting it, he refused to drink it. Verse 35. When they have crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots. Verse 36. And sitting down, they keep watch over him there. Verse 37. It's about his head. They put the letter chain against him. This is Jesus, the king, the king of the Jew. Verses 38. Two rob, robber and crucified with him was crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Verse 38. Those who passed by handed insults at him, shaking their head. Verse 40, and saying, You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself, come down from the cross, if you are the sons of God. Verse 41. In the same day, the chief priest, the teacher of the law, and the elder mocked him. Verse 42. He saved others, they say, but he cannot save himself. He is the king of Israel. Let him come down now for the cause, and we will believe in him. Verse 43. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him. Now if he want him, for he say, I am the son of God. Verse 44. In the same way, the robbers who was crucified with him also happened insults on him. The death of Jesus. Verse 45. For the 6th hour until the night or darkness come over all the land. Verse 46. About the ninth hour, Jesus cries out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which means, My Lord, my God, why have you forsaken me? Verse 47. When some of those standing there hear this, they say, He calling Elijah. Verse 48. Immediately one of them ran and got the spit. He filled it with white vinegar, put it on the stick, and offered it to Jesus to drink. Verse 49. The rest say, No, leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah come to save him. Verse 50. And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. Verse 51. At the moment, the grandeur of the temple was torn into two from top to bottom. The arch knocked and the lock sprang. Verse 52. The tomb broke open and the body of many holy people who was dying was rising to life. Verse 53. They come out of the tomb, and after Jesus' resurrection, they went into the holy city and appealed to many people. Verse 54. When the centurion and those with him who was guiding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that has happened, they was terrified and claimed, Surely he was the Son of God. Verse 55. Many women was there watching from a distance. They have followed Jesus from Galilee to care for his need. Verse 56. Among them was Mary Magdalene, Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of Zebedee, sons. The burial of Jesus, verse 57. As the evening approached, they came the rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who had himself become a disciple of Jesus. Verse 58. Going to Pilate, he asked king for Jesus' body, and Pilate ordered that it be given to him. Verse 59. Joseph took the body, wrapping it in clean wind cloth. Verse 60. And the place it is his own new tomb, and he has cut out of the rock. He rolled the big stone in front of the entire of the tomb and went away. Verse 61. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting there opposite the tomb. The guides at the tomb. Verse 62. The next day, the ones after Preparation Day, the chief priests and the Pharisees went to Pilate. 63. Sir, they say, we remember that when he was still alive, yet deceivers say, after 3 days I will rise again. Verse 64. So give the order for the tomb to be made secure until that day. Otherwise his disciple may come and steal the body and tell the people that he has been raised from the dead. This last deception will be wind and the first. Verse 65. Take a guide, Pilate answered. Go make the tomb as skilled as you know how. Verse 66. So they went and made the tomb skilled by putting a seal on the tomb and posting the guides. Matthew chapter 27, verse 2, handed himself over to the Pilate. The sufferings of Christ stirred 3. In the morning, Jesus betrayed and exhaled his tracking across Jerusalem to be interrogated by Pilate. Barnabas is released, verse 21. And Jesus is excused and handed over to be crucified, verse 26. For in the fourth stage of Christ's suffering, see verse 26. Matthew chapter 27, verse 3. Judas removes. Judas ran that his sinful action will lead to the death of Jesus. Like we are action inevitable to force others for good or for evil. Many things we set in motion cannot be stopped, and their evil and destructive results will be experienced by us and others. It is of all most important to avoid all action and plan that may have potentially harmful conse- consequences. Matthew chapter 27, verse 5. Judas' death. Matthew states that Judas hanged himself. Acts chapter 1, verse 18 recorded he died by falling. What Judas probably did was to throw himself on a spank stage. Hanging in those days was done by crucifixion or impalement. Matthew chapter 27, verse 9. Jeremiah the prophet. Matthew here combines and summarizes elements of prophetic symbology. One from Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 6 to 9, and one for Zechariah chapter 11, verse 12 to 13. Then he mentioned the older and more prominent prophets as the soul, a custom frequently used in allowing a passage for the prophets. Matthew chapter 27, verse 24. Pilate. Pilate's greatest sin was compromising what he knew to be true and right for the sake of the possession, strategy, and a personal gain. Pilate knew Christ was innocent and declared so on several occasions. Verse 18, John chapter 19, verse 4, 6. Matthew chapter 27, verse 26. And Jesus followed the sufferings of Christ state for number one, the Roman fraud consistent of the victory began, Stephen and tracked again, the Peter all bit over the law post, and the hand tied the instruments of the thorough with the sword winded handed to which several leaden thorns with attacked, with beatings of iron or bone tied to the thorns. The blow was laid on the victor backed by two men. One lasting the victor from one side and one from another side. This resulted in the flesh being cut to such an extended event. Arteries and sometimes even in inner organs were exposed. Often the victim died during the flogging. Number two, flogging his hidden torrent. The inability of the Jesus to bear his own cross is, no doubt, due to this starving influence. Verse 32. Luke chapter 23, verse 26. But he was punished for our transgression. He was casted for our iniquity, the punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wound we are healed. Isaiah chapter 53 verse 5. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 4. For the fit state of the suffering of Christ, see verse 28. Matthew chapter 27 verse 28 to 29. Our secret born, the cloud of thorns, the suffering of Christ, state 5. Jesus is united and placed in the middle of the Roman company. Verse 27. The soldier put rope, a rope clothed his shoulder, plate and stick in his hand, and pressing a cycle of branches covered with long thorns on his head. Verse 27. The students mocked him and struck him across the face and head, driving the thorns deeper into his scratch. Verses 30 to 31. For the sixth stage of the sufferings of Christ, see verse 31. Matthew chapter 27 verse 31. Lead him away to crucifixion. The suffering of Christ stay sick. The heavy burdens of the cross is tied to Christ's shoulder. He began slowly journey to Golgotha. The wind of the wither beat together with sharpened physical exhortation, cries him fall. He tried to rise, but cannot. Simon is then pressing into serve to bear Christ's cross. For the seventh stage of the suffering of Christ, see verse 35. Not. Matthew chapter 27, verse 35. They crucified him. The suffering of Christ, stage 7 at Golgotha. The cross is placed on the ground, and Jesus is laid on it. His arms are stricken away along the bridge, and the heavy square with iron nail is driven through his hand onwards, first into the right, then in the left hand, and deep into the wood. Next Christ is lifted up by means of rope or ladder. The cross bit is thrown on, nailed on the right bit, and spotted for the body. First the ouch lay it his feet are and extended, and the largest pieces of the iron is driven through them. For the eighth stage of the suffering of Christ, see in verse 39. Matthew chapter 27, verse 39. Hundreds enrolled at him. The suffering of Christ, stage 8. Jesus is now a pathetic spectre, blood-stained, covered him with and exposed to the view of the people. He experienced how of pain in his entire body, fatigue in his arm, great winds of hands in the muscle and skin, thought for his back. The another irony begins, a casting pain deep in the chest as brain began to compass the heart. He feels an internal task. John chapter 19 verse 28, and he is aware of the abusance and ridicule of those who pass by the cross. Verse 39 to 44. For the ninth stage of the sufferings of Christ, see verse 46. Matthew chapter 27 verse 46. Why have you forsaken me? The sufferings of Christ, stage 9, those were marked the element of the sufferings of Christ for a lost win. His crying is Aramaic. My God, why have you forsaken me? Testified the experience separation from God as a sinner. Substitute. Here the sorrow, grief, and pains are at their work. He is a priest for our transgressions, verses 50, Isaiah chapter 53 verse 5, and give himself a ransom for many. Matthew chapter 20 verse 28, 1 Timothy chapter 2 verse 6. Him who hath no sin, God made to be sin for us. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 21. He died for forsaken that we might never be forsaken. Psalm 22. Thus we are redeemed by the sufferings of Christ. 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 19. For the 10th stage of the suffering of Christ, see verse 50. Matthew chapter 27 verse 50, Jesus cries out again. The suffering of Christ, stage 10. Christ uttered his final word with a loud voice. It is finished. John chapter 19 verse 30. This cry signified the end of his suffering and the complete of the work of redemption. The debt for our sin has been paid in full, and the plans of salvation is the bread. Only then does he offer a final prayer, Father, into your hand I commit my spirit. Luke chapter 23 verse 46. For the first stage of Christ's suffering, see Matthew chapter 26 verse 37, Matthew chapter 27 verse 51. The central was told. The hearing of the central of the temple, Exodus chapter 26 verse 31, 33, chapter 36 verse 35. Signify that a way was now opened into the presence of God. The central separation, the holy place from the most holy place, bears the way into the presence of God. Through the death of Christ and the central way removed, and the way into the holy place. God present, which open for all who believe in Christ and His saving work. Hebrews chapter 9 verse 1 to 14, chapter 10 verse 19 to 22. Matthew chapter 27 verse 52. Many holy people was rise. The significance of this event is a prophetic in indications that Christ's death and resurrections currently are glory resurrection at his return. His resurrection marked the defeat of death. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 50 to 58. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 14.